July 24th, 2025. That morning started like so many others for Richard Ekpebu. He kissed his children, packed a small leather folder of papers, checked his phone, and told his wife he'd be back by evening. Richard was a Bayelsa estate agent, the kind of man people called when they needed land sorted, documents explained, and trust restored. He was 42, steady, known in the neighborhood. Nobody imagined that simple, ordinary appointment would become the last time anyone saw him alive. For 3 whole days, his family waited. 3 days of calls that went unanswered. 3 days of hope turning into the kind of worry that gnaws at your sleep. Then the worst happened. His body was later found dumped in a bush along the new Otuoke Road near Bayelsa Palm. This was no random tragedy. It was a disappearance that became a murder. And it left a community asking how a man who helped others secure their future on paper could lose his own life so suddenly. Listen, if you're hearing this on Missing Crime Files, you already know how these stories move. Small beginnings, then a jagged turn, then questions that won't let you sleep. This one is especially raw because it could happen to any of us. To the uncle who sells land for school fees. To the neighbor who's still trying to register an oil palm. In Bayelsa, land is not just dirt. It is future, pride, and survival. So when an estate agent vanishes, the fear is not only about a single life lost, it is about the trust that keeps whole families afloat. Let me take you back to those first 3 days. Imagine this. Richard's wife dialing his number again and again. Hands trembling, voice getting thinner. Siblings pacing the compound. Neighbors asking questions that flare like small fires. Who is he meeting? When did he leave? Did he take anyone with him? In a place where WhatsApp and phone calls can save someone, silence becomes the loudest thing. Friends organized searches, walked short stretches of road, stopped every taxi. They asked the market women, the Okada riders, the security at the junction, but nothing. That's when the dread begins to set in. Not just that a man is missing, but that something more dangerous is happening behind the scenes. And here's the part that cuts deepest. The first 48 hours can make or break a missing person case. Families told police. An initial missing person report was filed. But in many cases, the police need pressure, persistent family calls, social media noise, community protests to get resources moving fast. For the Ekpebu family, those frantic 3 days felt like forever as questions, multiplied, and answers refused to appear. The silence is heavy because it lets your imagination run wild. Is it robbery, kidnap for ransom, or something worse? Every caller is both hopeful and terrified. When the discovery finally came, it changed everything. A passerby noticed something strange in the thick brush along Otuoke Road and alerted authorities. What was once a missing person file became a homicide investigation. For a family already numb from waiting, seeing the place where a life ended is a pain that logic cannot soften. Neighbors gathered near the scene, whispering and shaking their heads. The road where the body was dumped was not a place people frequent. It was the kind of spot criminals pick because it's out of the day-to-day view. And that choice you need to hide a life like trash tells you the killers wanted Richard gone and gone for good. Once detectives began to peel back the layers, a more disturbing picture emerged. This wasn't a random attack by strangers. Instead, the evidence pointed to something that is painfully familiar in real estate circles. A fraudulent land deal that went sour. There were reports of a buyer wiring a large sum, nearly $9 million, and into accounts connected to people who were later suspected in the case. The money was meant for land papers, but when the buyer asked for documents, things went quiet. Richard, as the agent who had introduced parties or who was expected to manage the transfer, found himself in the middle of a mess. Friends and some press reports say that confrontation over missing land documents escalated into the plot that cost him his life. Money, reputation, and the fear of exposure. That's often the lethal mix. Now we move to the name that went from being a whisper to a headline, George Idumangi. According to police reports and local press, George is from Agbia, LGA, and was arrested in Lagos, trying to procure an international passport. Think about that for a second. Suspect who tries to leave the country after a disappearance. That move alone made people in Bayelsa angry. Was he running from guilt or from being found? His arrest came after pressure from the family and a focused operation by Bayelsa's Operation Puff Adder. The arrest didn't make pain go away, but it confirmed what many feared. This was not a mistake. It was an alleged plan that went dangerously far. And because this is Nigeria, the drama after the arrest read like a bad novella. Reports say George tried to bribe officials to avoid arrest. N4 Million reportedly waved at immigration officers to let him slip through. The officers said no. Later, there were other offers. Money to delete files from phones, to destroy evidence. Those offers, if true, show a level of desperation and a belief that money can buy silence. But in this case, the refusal to accept bribe money became a moment of civic pride. Officials who said no made it harder for the accused to vanish. It made people feel, for a flicker of time, that justice might be possible. It was not just George. The net widened. One of the people arrested was named Victory Bernard Henry, who is reported to be George's girlfriend. Items recovered from those rounded up from her custody, among others, were chillingly practical. A pump-action gun, live cartridges, AK-47 magazines, empty, walkie-talkies and chargers. That's not the equipment of a petty thief. Those are tools for coordination. For a plan executed with some level of organization. Add to that the street names you hear in reports. Doggy, insurance. And you start to feel that Richard may have run into a circle that treats land and people as interchangeable transactions. Let's pause here. I know you're probably thinking, but why would anyone want to kill an estate agent? That's the other cruel thing, and sometimes the people who help you secure your future can be at risk precisely because they sit at the junction of cash and paper. In communities where the land registry is messy and documentation is patchy, a single paper or signature can control a family's future. That power tempts some to cut corners, to invent fake sales, to move money into private accounts. When the scheme threatens to unravel, when an agent starts asking questions, or a buyer demands proof, some people panic and choose violence over exposure. It's ugly, but all too common. Back in Yenagoa, the community response was instant and loud. Family members petitioned, neighbors protested, and people demanded that police do more than just file a statement. The pressure helped, because in many areas, police resources are limited and investigations pick up speed when cases are public and noisy. The Ija Youth's Council publicly expressed shock and distanced itself from anyone misusing its name. People gathered outside police stations, chanting for full investigations and more arrests. Social media buzzed with photos and pleas. The anger was not simply about Richard's death. It was about fairness, accountability, and the feeling that people should not be able to use land as a weapon against others. Now let me tell you about the human detail that makes this more than a headline. Picture Richard's house in the days after. The small leather folder where he kept receipts, a child's sandal left by the door, a radio playing old Jolliffe songs, and a family trying to pretend they are okay in front of cameras. There is a photo that circulated online of his sister at the police station, pleading for speed and justice, voice heavy with fatigue. These moments are the raw material of grief. Arrests can make one feel like action is being taken, but they don't bring a man back. For the family, every news headline is a reminder of the empty plate at the dinner table. There is also the legal side, which is messy and slow. Arrest is one thing. Proving the case in court is another. Prosecutors will need to connect the dots, show that money flowed in certain patterns, that the accused communicated with each other, and that evidence ties them to the crime scene. Defense lawyers will push back and contest evidence, challenge chain of custody, and question witness credibility. In Nigeria, as elsewhere, courtrooms are where stories are tested and where the fine differences between alleged and proven are made painfully clear. The public conversation will continue to stir, but the court will decide facts that matter for conviction. So what are the lessons here? For one, verify, verify, verify. When you're buying land, insist on seeing the original documents. Meet the landowner in person. Use a lawyer where possible. Don't pay large sums into unknown or personal accounts without independent verification. Keep receipts, screenshots, and records of conversations. Sounds basics until something goes wrong, and those paper trails are the difference between losing money and having a case to bring to police. For many Nigerians, these steps feel like extra work. But the Ekpebu story shows why those small extra steps can protect lives and livelihoods. There's also the broader policy question. After cases like this, communities often demand better systems, transparent land registries, stricter bank checks on suspicious transfers, and legal reforms that make it easier to prosecute land fraud. Those changes aren't quick, but they matter. The Ekpebu family and community leaders have urged authorities to make anti-fraud measures a priority. That's a big ask, but it's the kind of change that could prevent the next tragedy. We should not, however, forget how complex the human motives can be. Was this purely about N9 million? Did other debts or grudges play a role? Were there deeper networks profiting from forged sales? The nicknames Doggy, Insurance hint at a shadow economy where identity is flexible and men with little to lose take risk others would not. Sometimes the people who perpetrate these crimes are themselves trapped in cycles of violence and debt. Not an excuse, but part of the social picture. If we want fewer tragedies, we must tackle the systems that push people into desperation and the greed that tempts them to harm others. As this episode goes out, remember that the case is still in progress. Use the word alleged, because that's where journalism and good conscience meet the law. People have been arrested, items have been recovered, and the investigation continues. For viewers who want to help, credible tips can be given to the police. If you have documents, bank slips, messages that might help, consider handing them to authorities or trusted journalists who can follow up responsibly. But also remember to protect yourself. Sharing unverified accusations on social media can ruin lives if they're wrong. Before I close, I want to bring it back to the family. In a video clip that went around WhatsApp, you can see Richard's child sitting on a chair, looking bewildered while adults talk in low, urgent voices. The grief is not a statistic. It is a child who will grow up without a father at the center of family stories. It is a mother who wakes up to silence. In telling this story on Missing Crime Files, we have a duty to prioritize dignity and care. We tell this as truth seekers, not as vultures. And because you asked for the gist and the practical, this story is a warning and a call to action. If you're buying land, keep strict records. If something looks off, accounts not matching names, pressure to pay fast, someone who refuses to meet the owner, stop. Ask questions. In communities where trust is currency, being a little skeptical is not rude. It might be life-saving. We'll be following the court process and bringing you updates. Who else was involved? Were all proceeds traced? Are there more arrests coming? These are the questions that matter now. And they are the ones family members and citizens will keep shouting until the system answers. That public noise ensures the case does not slip into oblivion. Before we end, we'd love to hear from you. What do you think really went down? Have you or someone you know been entangled in a land deal that turned sour? Drop your thoughts in the comments, but please keep things respectful and stick to facts. If you have a tip, share it with the police. And if you trust us, send credible documents to our inbox, and we will handle them responsibly. Missing Crime Files is committed to telling these stories with heart and care. We are not the court. We report allegations and facts, and we follow up. Our channel will not be held responsible for misunderstandings, and neither should our audience. Assume legal guilt until due process runs its course. If this episode has moved you, subscribe, and share it so more people in Bayelsa, Lagos and beyond know what happened to Richard. For the family, for the community, and for the cause of safer land deals everywhere, let us keep asking hard questions until answers come. Richard's story should not be reduced to headlines. He was a man who laughed loud at suya joints, who kept his receipts neatly folded in a leather folder, who planned for his children and did what he could to make tomorrow better. He went missing for 3 days. He was found dead. For those 3 days, his family waited, called, prayed, paced, and hoped. They deserve justice, and we as a community should not let them down.